Hi, I'm Jeannette Rocher. This is Bridge City News. Here are some of the top stories we've been following. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign raises nearly $50 million since Biden announced he's stepping aside in this fall's election. Plus, a Canadian citizen is dead after threatening Israeli security forces with a knife near the Gaza border. And 7 fishermen in the Maritimes are being welcomed home. They were rescued after being lost at sea for at least 50 hours this weekend.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Jeannette Rocher.
Thanks for joining us. RCMP say 2 Alberta men have been charged with uttering death threats against several public figures. Posts were made via the social media platform X in May and on YouTube last month against Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland, and NDP leader Jagmeet Singh. The Mounties say a 23-year-old Calgary man and a 67-year-old Edmonton man have been charged with uttering the threats. The men are set to make separate court appearances this week. The Alberta government says about 7,500 people are now out of their homes due to wildfires following new evacuation orders over the weekend. Saturday, the Little Red River Cree Nation ordered residents in John Deore Prairie and Fox Lake to leave, adding to the First Nations existing order for residents to evacuate Garden River. The province said more than 150 fires were burning in the province Sunday and that firefighters were expected to arrive from Australia to be deployed wherever help is needed. Wildfire smoke remains in the forecast across much of central and northern Alberta and into northern Saskatchewan today. On Sunday, there was an air quality value of 10 plus in Buffalo Narrows, Prince Albert, and Saskatoon. Environment and Climate Change Canada was expecting it to clear up in those areas today, but said some local smoke would remain. Heat advisories are also in effect for many of those areas, rather. And in situations with wildfires, it's often smoke jumpers who are first on the scene. Smoke jumpers are trained to parachute from a fixed-wing aircraft to fight wildfires. BC smoke jumpers Greg Jones and Tom Reinbold explain what it's like to be on the front line of BC's wildfire fight.
Smoke jumping is basically a means that allows us to take advantage of the speed, range, and payload of fixed-wing aircraft or airplanes. So it allows us to centrally locate experienced firefighters and then rapidly deploy them where they need to be. So in the case in British Columbia, we can be anywhere in the province in just under 2 hours. And the trade-off there is, of course, you can't land airplanes in the wilderness. So that's where the parachuting comes in. Once jumpers are on the ground, cargo is deployed also by parachute. And then from there, it's basically just like every other crew in the province or the country. You gather up your gear and go to work, whatever that means on that particular fire.
When we first started, we would get, 15 missions in a year, 10, 15 missions in a year. And now, like I said, an average year is probably 50. A really busy year is 80. And last year was 100.
A team of Transportation Safety Board investigators is headed to Newfoundland to determine what caused a fire aboard the Elite Navigator fishing boat. All 7 crew members were forced to abandon ship for a life raft on Wednesday and had just fired their last flare when they were spotted 2 days later. The men, who have been dubbed the Lucky 7, returned home Saturday to New West Valley and were greeted by about 1,000 cheering people, a parade of vehicles, and the release of balloons shaped in the number 7. So nice. Well, south of the border, U.S. President Joe Biden officially dropped out of the 2024 race for the White House on a Sunday, ending his bid for re-election after his unfavorable debate with Donald Trump that raised doubts about his fitness for office. The announcement was delivered less than 4 months before the election. A party's presidential nominee has never stepped out of the race so close to the election before. Biden's decision to bow out came after escalating pressure from his Democratic allies to step aside following the June 27th debate when the 81-year-old president trailed off and gave nonsensical answers. Biden will serve out the remainder of his term in office, but quickly endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris to take on Trump and encouraged his party to unite behind her. So what's next for Canada after the latest moves in the U.S. presidential race? Canadian Press Washington correspondent Kelly Malone says in this next report that observers expect Harris to follow President Joe Biden's roadmap on Canada-U.S. relations as she moves to secure the Democratic Party's presidential nomination.
Vice President Kamala Harris made her first public remarks at a White House event since President Joe Biden dropped out of the 2024 race and endorsed her for president. Biden bowed to weeks of pressure following a disastrous debate with Donald Trump last month and then multiple missteps on the world stage during the NATO Leaders Conference. Harris now seems to be the most likely presumptive Democratic presidential nominee who'll face off against rival Trump in November. Kirsten Hillman, Canada's ambassador to the U.S., said the U.S.-Canada relationship flourished under Biden's leadership. Alistair Roberts, a professor of public policy at University of Massachusetts Amherst, says it's expected that Harris will have similar policies as it relates to Canada. But he says there's still a good chance Trump will take the win, and Canadians need to look at the long-run prospects for an increasingly volatile political system in America and how to manage its largest trading partner. Kelly Malone, The Canadian Press, Washington.
Meanwhile, in her first public remarks since Biden's announcement, Vice President Kamala Harris did not talk about running for president. However, Harris will be hitting the campaign trail Tuesday, trying to secure support as she makes a run for the White House. Tomorrow, she travels to the battleground state of Wisconsin for an event in Milwaukee, then heads to Indianapolis on Wednesday. Since Biden endorsed Harris, her campaign has raised nearly $50 million U.S. in smaller grassroots donations. To discuss this further is our foreign affairs correspondent, Lisa Daftari, editor-in-chief of the Foreign Desk, who joins me from Los Angeles. Lisa, with a Democratic National Convention coming up in August, coming up soon actually, August 19th to the 22nd in Chicago, it's not yet clear if Kamala Harris will be the official nominee or if the party will hold an open nomination. What are your thoughts?
A lot of Democrats have come out to support her right out of the gate because, just to show some morale, they raised a lot of money in the 48 hours after President Biden made the announcement that he is stepping down. So, a lot of women, a lot of minority groups trying to really, motivate the base to just start supporting Kamala, just wrap their minds around the idea that she will be the candidate. I think they think at the very least, let's get this momentum going. And if there's a different candidate, well, we'll shift gears when we need to. Since the debate between Biden and Trump, obviously there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of, just the disenchantment with Democrat voters. A lot of them still said they would be voting for President Biden because they're Democrats and they vote, for the party. So now we shall see if she is the actual candidate or not. But in the meantime, I think she's trying to get some popularity. Look, she hasn't been a very visible vice president, meaning she hasn't done much where people are like, aha, we know that she's good on X, Y, and Z. So for example, she was the border czar. She went down there once because there was a lot of criticism about her not visiting the border. She's had a lot of, public speaking events that didn't go so well. I mean, she's a little nervous when she speaks publicly. And then when in her time in California politics as an attorney general and senator, a lot of minority groups feel that she has gone way too hard against first-time felons and things like that really bring the question as to whether or not she will be good on minorities and crime and things like that. So a lot of questions. We don't know what will happen, but for now, we know that President Biden is moving aside. And the other question, Jeannette, that a lot of people have is he fit enough to serve between now and the election? So we're months away. Our enemies are watching, and we just don't know what will be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting, Lisa, how much money she's been able to raise in such a short amount of time. Do you think there's anyone else the Democrats may want to nominate or push to that forefront?
Here's the challenge that the Democrats have. They either have to go forward with Kamala Harris. She will get the campaign money that has been raised thus far for President Biden's campaign, and she can choose a running mate. Now, if they go with an entirely new candidate, that will do a few things. The first challenge is they cannot get the money from them. There's other ways of raising money, or they might feel as though there's a candidate that is better suited or can get more popularity, and bottom line, defeat Trump. That is the main point here. Who could defeat Trump? On the other hand, someone made a great point. I think Bill Ackman actually tweeted this, and I shared this tweet. If they don't go forward with Kamala Harris as the Democrat nominee, it would suggest that she was not even fit to be vice president, let alone on the ticket for president. So it would really throw into question the entire party, their legitimacy, how fit their candidates are, and of course the Biden administration, where she served as vice president. So a lot of challenges facing the Democrats right now, and what ticket they will put up for November is the question. They have a lot of thinking to do, a lot of calculus here to see who can defeat Donald Trump.
Well, it will certainly be interesting to watch what happens in the coming weeks at that Democratic National Convention for sure. Lisa, thanks so much for joining me today from Los Angeles. That was Lisa Daftari, Editor-in-Chief of the Foreign Desk. U.S. Secret Service Director Kimberly Chettle has told the White House Oversight Committee the July 13th attempt to assassinate former President Donald Trump was the agency's, quote, most significant operational failure in decades.
As a director of the United States Secret Service, I take full responsibility for any security lapse of our agency. We are fully cooperating with ongoing investigations. We must learn what happened, and I will move heaven and earth to ensure that an incident like July 13th does not happen again.
Several politicians have called on Chettle to resign for President Joe Biden, or for President Joe Biden to fire her. Authorities in Israel say a Canadian citizen was killed Monday after threatening security forces with a knife near the Gaza border. According to Israeli officials, the man drove to the entrance of an Israeli town close to the border, left his vehicle, and approached the security forces with a knife. They say that is when the security opened fire and killed the man. The incident comes amid a wave of stabbings across the country and during the heightened tensions of the 9-month Israel-Hamas war. Unconfirmed reports have named the man in the attack, while some claim he is an American citizen. Global Affairs wouldn't provide more details due to privacy considerations. Closer to home, the sentencing for former Fort Macleod Town Councillor Marco Van Hugenbos and 2 others at the Lethbridge Courthouse has been adjourned to August 26th. Van Hugenbos, alongside George Jansen and Alex Van Herk, are accused of committing mischief during the Coutts border blockade 2 years ago. Today, the court pushed back sentencing due to Van Hugenbos's refusal to complete a pre-sentencing report. These reports look at the accused's daily life and beliefs, including political and religious views, among other things, for a judge to determine a proper sentencing. The sentencing in this case may not begin until late September.
With August 26th, I think the whole goal is to just set a date for sentencing. So I don't know if there's going to be any challenges or any communication as far as that part is concerned. The only reason why they did push it up is because the PSR wasn't completed for all of us. I'm surprised things keep getting pushed off and pushed off. I'd like to just move forward, get things done.
Meanwhile, the trial of Anthony Olenek and Chris Carbert will continue Tuesday, as Olenek is expected to provide his defense testimony. The 2 defendants are being charged with conspiracy to murder RCMP officers during the Coutts border blockade in 2022. However, during Carbert's defense testimony, he denies they had any plan to do so. We are expected to hear closing arguments in that case by the end of the week. Pincher Creek RCMP were on scene of a serious motor vehicle collision on Highway 6 by Twin Butte today. As of late afternoon, traffic was unable to get through the collision area. Motorists have been asked to take alternate routes. The City of Calgary and Calgary Sports and Entertainment announced new information of the new Events Center Monday afternoon and officially broke ground for its construction. Going forward, the Events Center, located at Victoria Park near the Scotiabank Saddledome, will formally be known as Scotia Place, with its design influenced by Indigenous cultural elements. Scotia Place will replace the Saddledome as the home for the Flames of the NHL and other professional sports organizations in the city, and will also feature a community rink, indoor and outdoor plazas, and multiple restaurants. It's expected that construction will be complete in the fall of 2027 at a price tag of $1.2 billion. Calgary's move to further lift outdoor watering restrictions has been delayed after more wires snapped along a new pipe over the weekend. Mayor Jody Gondek says the heat wave hovering over Calgary caused the snaps. Gondik says Calgarians are still restricted to using sprinklers for no more than 1 hour per week and a hose with a trigger nozzle until water service is restored. Staff at Public Health in Lethbridge are busy setting up shop at a new location. Public health teams and programs have moved from their old location at the Lethbridge train station and are permanently relocating to Melcor Centre downtown. Alberta Health Services says the move will consolidate all public health programs in one location and provide easy access to multidisciplinary health care teams and resources. Public health is still in the process of setting up, but programs are expected to be at full capacity by July 25th. Clients attending appointments can park for free outside of the bay's west entrance. Prostate cancer is a serious disease. Adam Kinnaird, chair of the prostate cancer research at the University of Calgary, says this condition is the most common internal malignancy in men, which affects around 1 in 8 men in Canada. Kinnaird also says prostate cancer typically affects men over 50.
So the Canadian Urological Association guidelines recommend for screening for prostate cancer starting at the age of 50, unless you have a first-degree relative who has prostate cancer, in which case you should start screening at the age of 45. The way that you screen for prostate cancer, it's a combination of a blood test looking at your prostate-specific antigen and a digital rectal examination. So that's a finger in the bottom end having a feel of the prostate to see if the prostate feels abnormal. So it's called risk-adapted screening. And so you get it done once, and then based on what the PSA value is, that changes how often you get it done. So if the PSA value is less than 1, then the next time that you should be getting screened is in 4 years. If the PSA value is between 1 and 3, then the next time you should be getting screened is in 2 years. It is something that is very curable if caught early. We're talking 95% chance of cure if the prostate cancer is caught early. But if the prostate cancer is caught late, once it has spread, there is no cure for prostate cancer. There's only palliation. And so that means it is critical to get screened to detect the prostate cancer at an early treatable stage.
According to Statistics Canada, other factors may increase the risk of prostate cancer, including obesity, eating a diet in high in red or processed meats, and high in fat. The town of Colehurst will celebrate this year's Miners' Days. The festivity will start this Friday and will run for the whole weekend. Lindsay Montina, mayor of Colehurst, says this celebration is a way to celebrate its history. She also explains what the event will entail.
On Friday night, we have a night market happening, which is a new event this year, and it will be happening at the community center. The Legion will also be having some live entertainment and an outdoor party. And then on Saturday, we start with free pancake breakfast, go into our parade at 10:30, and then it's party in the park at Imperial Meadows Park, where we'll have a lot of different activities, including bouncy castles, laser tag, a lot of fun things happening there into the afternoon. And then finally, we will have a movie in the hall. So we're encouraging people to bring their lawn chairs so they can come into the hall. It's a lot of fun, lots of candy being given out and lots of people having a great time there. And on Sunday, we have a Learn From Your Neighbor program that the Colehurst Parks and Recreation Society is putting it on. And so this is an opportunity for people to come together for free and to learn how to play disc golf.
Colehurst's history dates back to 1911. However, in 1935, a mining tragedy took the lives of 16 miners, causing the closure of the mine and creating a ghost town. It wasn't inhabited again until the 1970s. Today, Colehurst is a small community of just over 3,000 residents. It is located 10 kilometers west of Lethbridge. There are many sports that help teach kids important life lessons, and minor football is one of them. Jonas Friedman, president of the Lethbridge Minor Football Association, shares the benefits of this sports for kids.
General fitness, social skills, discipline, the friendships that they built through football are unlike any other sport I've seen. We always set goals. And have them achieve them throughout the end of the year. Good mental health, and I mean, starting younger is great, but we see kids start as late as well into their high school seasons. So,
catch the full interview with Jonas Freeland, president of the Lethbridge Minor Football Association, and BCN's Naveen Day coming up after business news. While soldiers on the front lines struggle to access electricity or the internet, FEBC Ukraine is ensuring they can hear the gospel message through their distribution of solar-powered radios. GNA reporter Peter Wooding visited FEBC's studios in Kyiv, where he heard more about how they are impacting those on the front lines.
In the midst of the ongoing war, FEBC Ukraine continues to broadcast a Christian message of hope to their listeners across the country. They're even reaching many soldiers in the war zones. So far, they've distributed 1,000 solar-powered radios to troops who have no access to the internet or electricity. Speaking from their Radio M studios in Kyiv, FEBC Ukraine Director Edward Kurilenko shares how there's a remarkable openness to the gospel on the front lines.
We have many testimonies from soldiers. And we have 1,000 testimonies every month. They started ask us about Jesus. They started build relationship with God. I mean, started praying to Jesus.
Radio M presenter Ina also says many of their listeners in the worst affected war zones are finding God's peace through their broadcast.
We have a lot of stories and response like, I'm listening you now, and in my neighbor building, it was rocket attack, and I'm so afraid. And thank you for your prayers on your broadcast. Thank you for your programs because it give me some peace.
And as well as their ongoing programming, presenters like Ina go the extra mile by hosting a weekly Bible study at their studios. And the team at Radio M remains committed to do all they can to broadcast hope and peace to their listeners who are impacted by the trauma of the war there. Peter Wooding reporting for the Global News Alliance in Kyiv, Ukraine.
Very inspiring. Well, a prolonged heat event continues in southern Alberta with daytime highs reaching 28 to 38 degrees Celsius this week. I'll be right back with a full look at the weather picture right after this short break. Welcome back. Well, lots of warm weather in store for us over the next week as this prolonged heat event continues for our region. As you can see, we're seeing a lot of mid-30s up to even the high 30s by midweek here. So we're seeing tomorrow, high of 35 degrees. 37 is our expected high on Wednesday. Now, here's the thing about Wednesday. Our heat record on that day was actually at 34.3. So if we can get anything above 34, up to 35 or 37 there, we will break that record, which was set back in 2007. So we're kind of keeping our eye on Wednesday. Into Thursday, we're cooling things down just slightly, 31 degrees. And then again, ever so slightly on Friday with a high of 26 degrees. Back to 27 on Saturday and high of 30 degrees on Sunday. So average high for this time of year is 26, average low 11 degrees. 37 was our high temperature on this day. That was the record breaker happening back in 1938. And in 1984, we set a cold record for coldest day on this day, which was only 4 degrees. 5:50, that's when the sun rose this morning, sunset this evening at 9:25. We're looking at 15 hours and 35 minutes of daylight now, so days definitely getting shorter. Very sunny, clear skies expected on the west coast tomorrow. 23 for a high in Victoria, a bit windy in the Juan-Fuca Strait. 22 for a high in Vancouver. Edmonton looking at both a heat warning and an air quality advisory due to some of that wildfire smoke. 32 degrees is the expected high. Could also see some showers and possibility of some thunderstorms later in the day. Clear skies expected in Calgary as they're sitting under that prolonged heat warning as well there. That heat event, high of 33 degrees there in Calgary. As we look into Saskatchewan, we're also seeing some poor air quality advisories, air quality statements for Saskatoon and Regina. Other than that, looking at clear skies, high of 30 degrees in Saskatoon, 27 for a high in Regina, high of 23 degrees in Winnipeg, with a mix of sun and clouds. So much more moderate temperatures there as we get into the central part of the country. 28 for a high in Toronto, mix of sun and cloud. 27, the expected high in Ottawa. Could see a 30% chance of showers there, risk of thunderstorms. Clear skies expected in Montreal tomorrow with a high of 28. Now, as we get into the East Coast, we are going to see a few more showers here and there in the Maritimes. Looking to Fredericton once we get over there. There we have it. Okay, Fredericton seeing a high of 23. Could see those showers, as I mentioned. Mix of, could see risk of thunderstorm later in the day. Showers expected in Halifax as well, 60%. As a matter of fact, 24 for the high. 24 as well expected in Charlottetown. And clear skies expected in St. John's, 24, a little bit cooler by parts of the Water there along the coast, more like 19 degrees. So there you have it. That is your forecast. Economists and market watchers say chances are good that the Bank of Canada will deliver another interest rate cut this week. Expectations for a second cut have been high since a Statistics Canada report last weekend showed annual inflation in the country cooled to 2.7% in June. Recent data shows rising unemployment and slower retail sales also support the prospect of a cut. Last month, the Bank of Canada reduced its key interest rate from 5 to 4.75%, the first cut in over 4 years. Air Canada is warning its second quarter and full year earnings will be lower than expected. The airline is blaming tough competition in international markets and says its planes aren't as full as it had anticipated. It now expects its adjusted earnings for the full year to be in a range of $3.1 to $3.4 billion, down from its previous outlook of $3.7 billion to $4.2 billion. Calgary-based Baby Gourmet Foods has issued a product recall for its banana raisin oatmeal organic whole grain cereal, which is sold in 227-gram packages. The reason is possible Chronobacter contamination, the bacteria that causes serious or fatal infections to the bloodstream, central nervous system, and intestines. The company says no other Baby Gourmet or Little Gourmet products are affected by the recall, and no incidents related to the product have been reported to date. Fairfax Financial Holdings is buying Asleep Country Canada in a deal worth around $1.7 billion. The sale is expected to close in the fourth quarter of this year if approved. Sleep Country President and CEO Stuart Schaefer says the transaction, quote, clearly demonstrates the value and strength of our brands and organization, end quote. Having different generations in the workplace can be rewarding and sometimes challenging. Sociologist Dr. Scott DeLong says the older generation must recognize and be sensitive to the fact that many of the younger generation are more in tune with their needs. He says there is much to be learned.
The younger generations are much more in tune to their needs, and they should be. The older generations, we take a look at it and say, well, just get on with it, move on. Things happen, move on. And while that gets things done faster, the depth with the concern for what's inside the person really does matter.
Catch the full interview with sociologist and author Dr. Scott DeLong and Hal Roberts coming up later in our show. Now here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was up 182 points to 22,872. Alongside, the Dow was also up 127 points to 40,415. The S&P 500 was up 59 points to 5,564, and the Nasdaq was up 280 points to 18,007. West Texas Intermediate oil was down 35 cents to $79.78 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 16 cents to $2.26 US. Gold was down 4.24 to 2,396 US an ounce. Silver was up a nickel to $29.17 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $7.76 per bushel. Barley is at $5.83. Canola is at $15.22, and corn is at $7.19 per bushel. Live cattle August contract was left unchanged at $188. Feeder cattle was up 0.80 to 256.40, and lean hogs was up 0.80 to 92.37. The Canadian dollar was unchanged over the past 24 hours and remains at 72 cents US.
Recapping one of our top stories, RCMP say 2 Alberta men have been charged with uttering death threats against several public figures. Posts were made via the social media platform X in May and on YouTube last month. Against Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland, and NDP leader Jagmeet Singh. The Mounties say a 23-year-old Calgary man and a 67-year-old Edmonton man have been charged with uttering those threats. The men are set to make separate court appearances this week. Coming up, we speak with Jonas Friedman, president of the Lethbridge Minor Football Association, about minor football. When you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. Also, be sure to visit our website anytime to check out a number of our stories and interviews.
Professional football season is underway in Canada, and minor football isn't far behind. Is tackle football safe for younger kids? Does it build good character and values? Today's guest is Jonas Friedman. He is the president of the Lethbridge Minor Football Association. Jonas, great to have you on today.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about Lethbridge minor football, and at what age can a youngster start playing?
Yeah, they could start as young as 7, 8 years old in Atom football, going all the way until 15, or just when they're going into grade 10, actually.
So with the Atom kids, I'm guessing there are some modifications for their age group, but do they still play tackle?
They do. Some teams have opted to go to flag football. A number of the teams still are doing tackle. And yes, they are modified games. We don't run first downs. We don't do special teams. The coaches are on the field to kind of assist them as well.
And the next level is Pee Wee, I believe. And what are the ages and what kinds of changes do we see at this level of play?
Yeah, 11 to 12-year-olds would be our Pee Wees for the calendar year. They do play full games. They do have referees. They do play full downs. There's some modifications to the game, but essentially full football, yep.
And what are the benefits of playing football at such a young age? And what kind of things do you see them learning that will help them in the real world as they grow into adulthood?
Just everything, just general fitness, social skills, discipline. The friendships that they built through football are unlike any other sport I've seen. We always set goals and have them achieve them throughout the end of the year. Good mental health, and I mean, starting younger is great, but we see kids start as late as well into their high school seasons. So.
And the next level is Bantam. And what age group is this? And what's different about that, the level?
Okay, yeah. You'd start Bantam 13, age 13. It is full football. All special teams are involved. And once you hit Bantam, your teams are eligible to play at a provincial level, to compete all across the province. And then there's other provincial teams, Team Alberta's, Team Canada, stuff like that you also can be a part of and try out for.
And I understand that there is now also a flag football opportunity for players. What is that all about, and who is this for, and when does it happen?
Yeah, mostly for our younger age groups. A couple of our teams in Lethbridge have opted at that level to go to flag football. I know the Rams and the Bulldogs have elected to go to flag football at that level. It helps them kind of develop some skills minus the contact.
And I'm guessing that these younger players all look forward to the opportunity to play for one of the local high school football teams. So can you tell us a little bit about how things work in high school football?
So yeah, everybody's working towards high school. There's just nothing better. Friday nights, under the lights, pep rallies, everything that happens building up to a game in a high school. It's so exciting, and there's nothing better than it. So.
And what equipment will parents need to get for their kids?
Actually, Lethbridge Minor Football, we will supply with their registration, the helmet and the shoulder pads, which is a good portion of the equipment that they need. Not a lot. Pants, cleats, mouth guard, water bottle. It's as far as I know, it's the most inexpensive sport to be playing right now.
Really? Wow. Because I hear like hockey can be quite expensive.
$200 to $300. That's all it costs. So.
That's great. And what about the registration costs to play minor football? How much is it? And is there financial assistance available for those who need it?
Yeah, there certainly is. So for Adam football, I think it runs around $200. For Pee Wee and Bantam, it runs around $300. And if you require financial assistance, that's available for you for sure. Kids sport and Jumpstart, sorry. Kids Sport and Jumpstart are the two financial assistance. So you'd want to apply early to those and get those in. Our season is fast approaching, so.
Okay, and I guess like some parents may have concerns about the physical safety of their child playing tackle football. What would you say to them?
Yeah, so over the past number of years, a number of rule changes have come into football at the professional level and definitely at the minor level to make the game safer. It is not the game that was played before. The practices are structured different. The games and the rules are 100% different. The equipment is different. So it is not the sport that it used to be. Also, all our coaches are have a safe contact certification and a couple of other certifications as well.
And parents may also have concerns about bullying or other kinds of abusive behaviors. I presume that there are some protocols in place?
Oh, definitely. We wouldn't tolerate anything like that at all. Football is, one of those sports where it takes all 12. There is kids that have been playing for a number of years. There's some kids that are always new to the sport. So, we always promote, trying to help, the newer players get up to par. You're only as strong as your weakest link.
Right, yeah. And are you looking for volunteers?
Yes, always looking for volunteers. Lethbridge Minor Football, we're always looking for volunteers. We are also pretty much all the teams that I know of are looking for coaches, community coaches. So there's no shortage of volunteer needs in Lethbridge, that's for sure.
And when and how can parents get their kids registered for football?
Yeah, in the Lethbridge area, lethbridgeminorfootball.org. Outside of Lethbridge, there's a number of teams in Sampha as well, and that would be southabfootball.ca.
Okay, and like some kids that have registered for football, can you just share some success stories?
Yeah, just recently, actually, we had an ex-Ram that played minor football. I can't remember what years he played, but he was just recently drafted into the NFL. That's a first for Lethbridge. Many youth sport athletes, many NCAA athletes. So there's no shortage of success stories in Lethbridge, and just some of the kids that are upcoming now, they will be following in the same footsteps as Tanner for sure.
So like, do these kids like have aspirations to get into like major leagues?
Yeah, I mean that's always the goal as a kid. I mean you have to set your dreams high and shoot for the stars. That would be the dream. Of course, you got to get through high school first. Most of these kids will land on youth sport teams, and the ones that are very successful will play some NCAA ball and see them at the CFL and NFL level, hopefully in the future.
And do you have any final thoughts or advice or encouragement for viewers thinking about getting involved with minor football?
Yeah. a number of the teams will run spring camps. It's a good chance for to get your kids, feet wet and see if they enjoy the sport. So you could reach out to lethbridgeminorfootball.ca. I could kind of put you in contact with those coaches, see if they're running any camps. There also is other camps that are not involved, that are not associated with Lethbridge Minor Football. We could, your kids could try those and see if it's for them. It's the best sport in the world.
Jonas Freeman is the president of the Lethbridge Minor Football Association. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Today's workforce appears to be going through some demographic changes with multiple generations working together. Sometimes this has the potential to make for some tension and stress in the workplace, which can impact our overall mental health. Joining us now from Orange County, California to chat about it is Dr. Scott DeLong. He's a sociologist and workplace expert. He's also author of the book, I Thought I Was a Leader, A Journey to Building Trust, Leading Teams, and Inspiring Change. Scott, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you very much, Hal. I really appreciate your opportunity to be here.
You bet. Now, in your book, you say the landscape is changing, with Gen Zs about to outnumber baby boomers. So where and why are we seeing tensions and stress happening between the different generations here in the workplace?
Well, because there's a gap of 4 generations now, right? You got baby boomers, and then you have the Gen X, and then millennials, and then the Gen Z. And typically, you only have a gap of 3 of them instead of 4. But now we have 4. And the larger the gap, the bigger the differences are going to be, just based on our experiences, the things that we have seen versus what they have seen. And you're going to see that. There's communication differences. There are certainly mental health concern differences. Give you a quick example. Those of us in my generation, and I'm 64 years old, so those of us in my generation, we were taught to buck up, dude, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and if you go see a counselor or a psychologist, that's an area of weakness. And yet we taught our children differently. We taught them to be concerned about their feelings and to recognize their feelings. So while they have a completely different point of view on what mental health looks like, it's us, the older generations, that taught them how to do that. And yet we don't embrace that ourselves. So you're going to see gaps. Absolutely.
It's interesting. You even see that in professional sports nowadays. And when I was a kid, and I played football, it was like, okay, you just dislocated your finger, put it back into place and get out for the next play. Or you had the wind knocked out of you, or maybe there's a cracked rib, tape it up and go back out again. But nowadays it's a lot different. So I think you're right, society has changed quite a bit. Now, Scott, when you see a lot of conflict in the workplace, not on the field, to what degree can this affect the mental health of employees?
Oh, absolutely. Conflict, so I reframe conflict to just a difference of opinion. It can turn into a war, a fight, a battle, and those things certainly can affect the mental health of people if they get into a place where they feel that they're not, their experience is not valued, that they don't have a safe place to go. It is going to affect the mental health of people. If we reframe conflict to looking at just a difference of opinion, and that we want to explore those opinions, because there's a lot of reasons to explore difference of opinions. One is going to make me smarter. I'm going to have more information if I'm willing to listen and open up. But 2, it's going to make a connection better between human beings, right? We talk about respecting others, and respect to me is not just the type of respect that my dad taught me. Respect is earned, it's not given. But respect is more respect for human dignity. And that now more than any other time is so vital, especially when you see these big gaps in the generations. The respect for them, whoever them is, the other group, whether it's the young people looking up to the old people or the old people looking up to the young people, having respect for what it is that who they are, what they know, how they can help and how they can benefit is a big difference. And if we look at it like that, we have less conflict, and we just have a difference of opinion and a way for each to teach each other something new about the world that they didn't recognize before.
It's true. When we learn, we grow. I mean, even though I'm a Gen Xer, I work with some millennials and I work with some Gen Z. employees here too, and I learn from them as well at the same time. They help teach me something new as I help teach them and maybe nurture and mentor them as well. So it's nice how we learn and grow, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And I think I'm going to take that back to a chapter in my book on humility, right? And I frame humility a little bit differently than most people do as well. Humility to me is not thinking less of myself or pushing off the praise that people might give me. It's not that at all. Humility for me is to recognize the human dignity in everybody, and that I can learn from anybody. And whether they're Gen Zs, there's a lot that these folks can teach me. And it's not just on technology, but the whole mental health piece. Like this whole pull yourself up by the bootstrap, great idea, but darn, things happen in life, right? And I could use some support too, if I'd just be willing to open up about it.
So Scott, how are the generations different in their attitudes towards workplace mental health? Compare someone like me who's a Gen Xer versus someone like my son who's a millennial.
Yeah, I think, and it gets even deeper when we talk about the folks in the Gen Z. The younger generations are much more in tuned to their needs, and they should be. The older generations, we take a look at it and say, well, just get on with it, move on. Things happen, move on. And while that gets things done faster, the depth with the concern for what's inside the person really does matter.
So why doesn't a one-size-fits-all generations approach really work for supporting workplace mental health?
Well, one size fits all doesn't work because we have different needs or recognition of the different needs that we have with each other. I'm going to look at it like I don't need the help. I'm just going to get through this. Whereas the younger people actually want some support and want some place to go and talk. But when you get back down to it, we're all human beings and we all have a lot of the same needs. We have the need to feel connection. We have the need to feel that we are valued and that other people consider us worthy. So there is a little bit of a one-size-fits-all approach, but how to get there, right? The one-size-fits-all approach is to make people feel whole. How we go about that is different by the generations.
So Scott, what should companies do to accommodate these generational needs for supporting mental health in the workplace?
It's all about communication with me. So the first thing that I think we need to do is we need to teach our supervisors, our managers, our directors, and our vice presidents that these issues are important and they're real and that they affect the company's bottom line too. It's not just the humanity piece, but it affects the bottom line as well. So if we teach people that these things are real and that we need to take the time to have open communication with folks and that it's okay to be a little bit vulnerable, that those communication can take place. Communication, again, is the key. It is the solution to most of the not serious mental health issues. I'm not talking about psychosis and all that, but I'm talking about the feeling that we belong piece. And having the different generations open up and talk to each other, be a little vulnerable, be a little humble, show some empathy with each other. We're going to make connections a lot deeper.
So how can a company really gauge if they're really hitting the mark on this when it comes to communication? Is there a proper way to potentially evaluate?
Yeah, there really is. And it's a matter of opening your eyes and paying attention. So the first thing that you're going to see when we're not addressing the concerns of people is the high turnover rate. We saw that during COVID, and it has gotten a little bit better, but not a lot better. People are out there looking for new opportunities. What I'm suggesting is that with this open communication policy and processes and feeling for humanity, right, for people, that we're going to have much less turnover. So your turnover rate is the key. The other keys that you take a look for in the business environment is, are people missing deadlines? Is the clarity not there on what's expected of them? If they're not engaging in meetings, if they're not willing to open up and talk, you're going to start seeing those as subtle clues. But the reality is it's going to hit home when people are taking more time off work or if they're switching jobs.
You know, one of my coworkers said it's also called quiet quitting sometimes, you know, when somebody almost goes into a shell and stops the communicating, just does the basics, doesn't go the extra mile anymore, and you start to see that in your fellow coworkers. Now, I'm guessing that sometimes generations communicate a little differently. Some like to communicate via text. They say, why did you call me? You know, just text me, don't call me. And I'm like, what? I'm from the old school. I like to either call somebody or talk to them face-to-face, while even other people prefer online platforms to communicate. So how do we kind of maneuver and work through all of this?
So this is the one area that I think the older generations do a little bit better job with. So we have something that we've created called the communication hierarchy. And what it suggests is that the greater the chance for conflict, meaning just a difference of opinion, the higher up the communication hierarchy we need to go. At the top of it is face-to-face communication. Below that is what we're doing right now, a video call. So I can see your reactions, and I can gauge with your tone of voice. Below that's a phone call. Below that is email, and below that is text, right? The only thing lower than the text communicate, when there's conflict, potential for conflict meaning you're going to see things differently than I do. That's all, right? The more chance for that, the higher up this ladder we need to go in order to effectively communicate. How often have you seen a text message go wrong, or an email that someone responds to improperly? So these are some of the things that the older folks are going to need to help the younger people understand the value of this face-to-face communication. Whereas a text is great if someone wants to text, hey, meet you at the movies at 5:30. Great, no conflict there. It's much more efficient to communicate via text and email, but it's not as effective. And I prefer effectiveness over efficiency any day.
A lot less misunderstandings as well. Like you said, if you meet somebody face to face or do a Zoom call or whatever, and yeah, a lot less miscommunication there, right?
Absolutely. I tell people all the time, you start getting these emails going back and forth and they start escalating, right? The tension starts escalating. And as soon as you see this difference of opinion, pick up the phone, walk down the hall. Like, let's get some emotion, let's get some voice into this conversation, as opposed to the written language. The written language is almost always read one level below my intention, like one level more hostile than my intention. And it just works out that way. So if I'm going to suggest somebody do something differently, I'm not going to do it via email. I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to walk down to their office. I'm going to give them a call and talk about it so that they can see my intention, and then the impact is equal to the intention. Intention and impact are often different, especially when we're texting or sending emails.
You know, it's funny, a couple of times my mother, when she was still alive, may she rest in peace, she would text me, and a couple of times she had her caps lock on and everything was uppercase, and that usually says you're yelling at somebody, you're angry, right? Yeah. And I let her know after. I said, what's, are you okay, Mom? Are you angry? No, I'm not angry. Why do you keep asking me that, right?
See, again, generational divides, right? So you know that uppercase means yelling, and she just thinks it means emphasis. That's all.
So what can we, as the more mature, older generation, learn from our younger colleagues, especially when it comes to communication?
Well, there's so much to learn from them. So if it's true, and it is, that between Gen Z and millennials, more than 50% of our current workforce, that also extrapolates to say that they're probably more than 50% of our current customer base. Our future is in these folks. Do you want me, a baby boomer, making decisions on our future when these folks know what's happening, know what they're going to be needing, right? So what can we learn from them? We can learn what's happening now and in our future. What can they learn from us? Some old tried and true ways. We have experience, we have some wisdom, and sharing that with each other is the key to making this process work. And the sharing it is that communication piece, right? That helps bridge that mental health gap that we're talking about as well. If I just look at them and say, oh, they're just young people, they don't matter and whatever, how are they going to receive that? Or the other way around, he's just an old guy, what does he know, right? As opposed to sharing our information together so that we can both learn and grow, but more than that, we can connect on a human level.
And never start a sentence with, back in my day. That'll put up the walls and close off the communication right away, right?
Yeah. So one of the things that I like to talk about is how to get across ideas, new ideas, or ideas that I'd like to have done. And that is, I consider them, so we discuss what the problem is. All right, here's a problem. What I come up with, or they come up with, is a potential solution. And then I'll always end with this. What do you think? That is a dialogue starter, right? It's not, we need to do this and we need to do it now. Never do that, right? So what I'll do is come up with a potential solution, saying, what I think we ought to do is such and such. What do you think? Get that dialogue going. And you will see that the people will respond to that. They are going to be they welcome the opportunity that I care about what they have to think. And there's age differences and power differences and all of that. But when I reach out to you and say, hey, Hal, what do you think? What does that do? It draws you closer.
It shows you really value them as a person, right?
Absolutely.
So what suggestions, Scott, do you have for people looking for ways to get support for their mental health at work?
It requires a few, and back to those three principles I was talking about: humility, vulnerability, and empathy. Being willing to. In order for that to happen, though, that there has to be psychological safety created within the organization. The psychological safety just means this: that people do not fear of any repercussion for anything that they might say, right? And so it's a top-down driven initiative that leadership has to impose. We are going to create a safe environment for people to be able to communicate. Now, here's the problem with that, though. Anybody in the room can ruin psychological safety. Even if the leader is promoting it and saying, here's what we do and here's how we operate, and this is our culture, one person over in the corner rolling their eyes at me as I'm exposing myself will get me to shut down immediately. So it's got to be driven through the entire organization that it's okay. It's okay. This is safe. You can talk to me about this.
Dr. Scott DeLong is author of the book, I Thought I Was a Leader, and it's available at scottdelong.net. Scott, thanks so much for joining us today from Orange County, California.
Thank you, Hal. I really appreciate being here. Thanks for the opportunity.
You bet. On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and thanks for watching.